This here is Backwoods Billy, kind of beautiful Delmarva East. Just remember to click, like, subscribe to Backwoods Billy Craft Beer Reviews on YouTube, as well as Backwoods Billy CBR on Twitter, coming soon to Vino and TikTok. Already on Facebook, haven't really loaded anything yet, but you can see me at Backwoods Billy Craft Beer Reviews there. Check me on Short Craft Beer. Also, check me out, some beer magazines, etc., where you see my articles. Now, we're getting ready to start on Budweiser Copper Lager. This was under the watchful eye of Mr. Kramer, Peter Kramer, who is the master brewer at Budweiser. And two iconic giants have came together with Jim Beam and Budweiser to come out with the Copper Lager. Now, 6.2% ABV. The IBU range is 18 to 24. Now, I did contact Anheuser-Busch's representative for the press, as well as called them. They sent me the standard thing that you could just go to tap your beer because they didn't know. But since I know that the IBU range is, well, I would think this would be closer to 18 to 24, probably a 20 or 22, since the highest range is 6.3 on the IBU, 5.3 to 6.3. So I would assume that it's probably 20 to 22 IBUs. Now, the Copper Lager style BJCP 6A, which would be like a Marzen, which is a German style fest beer. Now, everybody knows that as the summer winds down, before the first leaves turn colors, you start to see the Oktoberfest beers and the beers of fall, like s'mores beers, etc., come out. This is Budweiser's release for the fall. Before that was the Red Lager, Freedom Reserve, and before that was the Freedom Reserve 1933 Repeal beer. So this is the third one in a series of their beers. Now, if it's the Czech style, you're going to see more like a Saul's hops. If it's the German style, you're going to see more like the Hallertau and Tang hops. You could use Liberty, Mount Hood, and Saul's if you didn't want to use the Tang and Hallertau in the German style. Now, they're saying 2-row barley malt, everything's 2-row, and they didn't say anything else. Now, they say a rye finishes. There is a crystallized rye malt that's relatively new, about 5 years ago, in which rye malt is a spicy malt. By crystallizing it, it brings out some of the sugars when you create it, adds a little color to the beer, and the crystallized sugars will not ferment, so it creates a little sweetness, thus also taming down the spiciness of the rye malt. Also, typically you're going to see either Vienna or Munich malt as the backbone, but usually if one's in there, the other one's in there, and it can have Tara Pilsner malt in there as well. Obviously, filtered water and yeast, either a Czech style or Bavarian yeast would typically be used for this to make the beer. Now, I've had a couple of these, bought a case. This is Budweiser Copper Reserve Lager. And when I contacted them, they did get back to me and tell me something that it was aged for a year on the Jim Beam white labeled charred barrel staves. And my assumption would be to this, that the staves were charred on both sides, that they were probably soaked in bourbon by Jim Beam and then shipped to Anheuser-Busch. Now, my question to them was whether they just floated on a tank or they suspended and were somewhere in the middle, somewhere in the bottom, weighted so that it was more like a barrel and you had contact with it. Now, by barrel aging a beer, instead of somebody's adding bourbon to it, you don't have as strong of a notes of bourbon. You tend to get some vanilla notes from the wood. Now, they also age this on vanilla bean. So by slicing some vanilla beans and letting the age on there, you're going to get a vanilla note to this as well. You're going to get some caramel notes, toffee notes, which I've already had. Now, typical with a Vienna lager, you will experience the sweet, malty, bready notes, some caramel notes, and you will also can get some toffee to this. It tends to have the sweet up front, and then you finish to a clean to slightly sweet finish because the hops keep the malts in check in this style of beer. Now, that I went through some of that I think is important. When you select the malts, not only does it change the color when they roast them, it's also going to change the aromatics and taste of the beer. I don't know why I'm doing this twist top. I haven't used this yet. It's warm anyway. There's a twist top. Not a fan of twist tops, but that's okay. Now, 8 to 17 on your SRM scale for your color is what you typically get for this beer. Nice logo on the top. But let me out there in craft beer land, you got a brewery, Budweiser, got their logo. There's Jim Beam's front, and then it says Copper Lager. It pours a nice tan fluffy, and when colder, it does pour a heavier head. Very nice lacing, very pillowy light tan, fluffy head. The color of this is amber. I would peg this more at an SRM 14, so higher than obviously the 8, so lower than the 17 range of it. You get sweet toasted bread up front. You get the malty sweetness as well. You get some of the caramel notes, vanilla notes, which are from the wood, and you get some of the bourbon notes in the aromatics of the beer. Creamy mouthfeel, which is typical with this style of beer. Medium carbonation, which is also typical of this style of beer. Medium to medium light body, so it could be as high as medium heavy. So I would say this is going to be a medium body beer. You get the bready notes, toasted bready notes. It's sweet, caramel, toffee, vanilla, which you're going to get strong if you just age in the barrel now. And of course the BJCP style guns, where you look at 3C for the Czech style or 6A for the German style, Bavarian style Marzen. In essence, whether you do, when you get into the aging stuff in a barrel for beers, this is what the World Beer Cup, the Great American Beer Fest, and all your beer companies are judged by the style guidelines, and the American Brewers Association brews to. It should be subtle, and the beer should not be overpowered by whatever liquor is utilized to age in it, whether it be wine, whether it be whiskey, bourbon, brandy. And that's the case with this. The bourbon is definitely there, but it does not overpower the beer. It is a very nice Marzen style beer, and in German, Marzen means March. And what they would do is they would brew the beer in March, and it would be lagered or stored until the late summer, like August or into September, and they would drink the beer then. And that became the festival, Oktoberfest, blah, blah, blah. And then decades ago, they went to a lighter style Marzen called Helles, which means lighter, versus the darker. But you still see the darker Oktoberfest. That's the main one, and it's the like. To me, this is the best time of the year. You get nice colors. When I used to wear suits, I like the thing to, you know, you had more options with your ties and your suits. You did pastel pinstripes, so that you could do a lot with the colors. Next, when you're looking at fall for beers, there's a lot of good selections. They tend to be more malty sweet. If you like malty style beers, especially a malty lager, you'll definitely love this one. Now, if you're expecting this to be a bomb with bourbon, it's not. And I don't know any beer that I've had that's been a really good, high quality, rated 90 or above, where I've seen a bourbon bomb with it. The bourbon is a light thing. Anytime you barrel age something, the bourbon notes are subdued. You do get some of the woody notes to this, some of the tannins in there. It's a Backwoods Billy 2 thumbs up on this beer. I highly recommend it. This will go well with any type of barbecue food, any type of grilled pork. They tell you, oh, you can have brats with this. Obviously, you could. Steaks will go very well with this. Grilled chicken, like I said, any type of barbecue food. Steamed seafood, Chinese food, Thai food, all work very well with this. Have a good time, and happy Oktoberfest with Jim Beam Budweiser collaboration Copper Lager beer. It's Backwoods Billy giving you a 2 thumbs up. Go out and get this beer. I never want to be the first one doing a review. I want to be the best one doing a review. Have an awesome day, guys.